Good evening, communication students. This is Marshant. I hope that you are doing well. This is Communication Science, Global Communications. It's Learning Unit 7, and we are going to be talking about the futures of global communication. So I really want to focus on how this particular learning unit is all about how global communication is going to look like in the future. So we're going to be talking about key concepts such as forecasting and probabilities and risk assessments. And those are the kind of key concepts that I want you to focus on. I will also include two additional readings from Rowan Wasserman and then also from Moraine, which I think would really help you to understand the ethics in global communication. So ethical global communication in the future, especially when we start thinking about the incorporation of chat GPT and AI and those kind of things. And then also Rowan Wasserman will have us have a little bit more of an understanding and the communication between convergence of technology and human communication. So we're going to be talking about, human to machine kind of communication, machine to machine kind of communication, telepathic communication, which is really interesting, and cyber immorality. So it's really important that you access these additional readings, and I think that there's one or two videos that would be included as well. It's going to be super important for your exam. So while we're talking about learning Unit 1 then, some of the key concepts that we need to really understand and address in the future of global communication, as I said, is forecasting, its challenges that we will be experiencing, and it's also the ethics. So the key questions that we have here is, why is there a need to explore the future of global communication? And for this, you can read page 234 to 235 in the Hamerling. Then also, what are the aspects that will influence the future of global communication? So this ties in quite nicely with Learning Unit 2 or Learning Objective 2 for Learning Unit 7, and how would changes in technology or advancements in technology impact the future of global communication? Spoiler alert, we can't really predict it. We can ask experts, and we can do observations of past experiences, but it's really, really difficult to predict what the future of global communication will look like when we start incorporating considerations for technological advancements. But like Einstein said, it's important to talk about it because we are going to live in the future, especially with the fourth industrial revolution, and the beginning of the fifth industrial revolution as well. So I want to pause here for 2 seconds, just to give you a snippet of the kind of questions that could be asked in your exam for this particular learning unit of the futures of global communication. Um, I extrapolated this from past papers from 2019 and 2021. And there you can really see what some of these questions look like. So remember, if you have a question for 10 marks, it's never a bad idea to refer to the basics, define, explain, and examples. In fact, I think for each and every one of these questions, they do actually ask you to incorporate an example as well, which I think, just to have one handy while you are going through your notes is never a bad idea. Then for learning objective 2, it's to analyze critical aspects that will influence forecasting and global communication. And there's really no other way to get around the understanding of this particular learning objective than to read Hamerlink page 235 to 241. It's just 6 pages, but it really gives you a rich understanding of technology as an aspect that influences forecasting and global communication, and expert opinions and information and communication technologies. where we look at risk estimation, cost benefit analysis and these kind of things. And then also the observations that we have of the frequency of events. So there are two techniques that you can go and check out. Google event tree. It's not the event tree, sorry, it's the event tree. And then also the mirror technique when it comes to observations of the frequency of events that will help us to really understand what might happen in global communications in the future. Two little key concepts. We can flesh this out a little bit more when we have our live OT session. Then, when we start three, which is to examine the advancements of technology as influencer of um, the future in global communication. This is on page 241 to 242. But technology really did have a profound, or does have a profound effect on global communication in terms of, we are now able to phone in them synchronous. So I don't have to fly to have meetings in more business, can have a Skype call, or a Blackboard collab for students that might be scattered all over the globe. So technology definitely has had an impact and continues to have an impact on, or an influence in, the way that we communicate with one another, um, especially in the global arena. So you can go through that and make sure that you get some examples. For learning unit objective 4, there are a couple of things that we then look at, and I really want you to turn to page 244 and to 247 for these. I've assigned the different page numbers of where you can find these separate subheadings, but and I'm do a few of these. We'll flesh them more in the live OT session, but knowledge, we really start talking about the ability of effectively processing and using information, and knowledge that is relevant to whatever it is that people need. We also start talking about information disparity. For example, we've spoken about the digital divide. That comes into play when we talk about the challenges of global communication in the future. If we think about the billboard society, advertising now is everywhere. I mean, if I go onto YouTube, if I go onto Instagram, if I watch TikTok videos, I mean, products are being punted everywhere. Even if I watch a movie, you know, go and watch Fast and the Furious 10. I mean, there are car brands and different sort of global brands that are being punted in those. It's really ubiquitous. It's really everywhere. And we talk about global governance, for example, how different things happening in different countries affect one another, instability of different regions, and then also how specific big businesses or global businesses have a big influence, even more so than local governments in certain instances, and the instantaneous nature of on the spot global news, things like events breaking live and us being able to see them, and global participation and money and global communication. Like, go through those different pages and make sure that you know and understand uh, what each and every one of those subheadings actually refer to. Could be a nice 5-point question for each and every one of. For learning objective 5, it talks about assessing the relationship between convergent technology and human communication. So it really talks about, and this is an interesting part. So bet you dollar to donuts, this is going to be a question in the exam. It talks about convergence means the coming together of, right? So when we start looking at the between people and technology becoming less and less. Here will give you some insight to what that immorality, and then also machine to machine. That's very important. Um, Telepathic communication, you can just go through cross species communication. For example, how we treat our animals. We love our dogs, but we hate rats. That kind of a thing. And we tend to anthropomorphize, the animals that we exude affections on, like cats and dogs and that kind of thing. Here is a QR code that you are welcome to scan to read the article, and it will help you to answer some of those questions. For learning objective 6, it's to explain the challenges of ethics. I did include a YouTube video there. It's about 3 minutes that will help you to have a better understanding of ethics and ethical behavior. Sorry, I just want to go colonial cosmopolitanism, as well as moral choices and moral intuition. Those are two really important key concepts to know and understand. Okay, so again, from Marianne, I did put in another QR code that will help you to answer some of these key questions. So, what is ethics? It's the decision between what is good behavior and what is bad behavior. But then also, what is a global public space? And the need for global public spaces, it ties in quite nicely learning objective 7 for this particular learning unit. But this article and specifically focus on transhumanism, the question of transhumanism, that will gain a little bit more. We will be talking about is learning objective 7. And this is to justify the need for global public spaces in global conversations. So if you refer to page 255, the heading there is the global conversation requires global public spaces. Read that section. It talks about how public spaces are physical spaces that you can touch. Like if you go to a bar, like the picture shows, or if you're with a family dinner, these are actual public spaces. Now, the cyberspace is starting to emulate, because it's becoming better and better, these public spaces. But it's really important for us to understand still the discernment between these two, and then why ask ourselves the question, these public spaces, it shouldn't be all of private interests. It should be where people come together and collaborate. And so we really talk about the discernment. Can online replace face to face? At the current moment, I don't know so much. But that then is learning unit 7. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as